Well, we knew some big changes were coming, but I don't think anybody expected this. Every single ultimate has been nerfed, or at least it's all been slowed down. How's it going, everybody? Force here, and today I'm going to be going over all of the changes that just came through in the PTR. We now finally have those official patch notes, and I can go with you step by step. The big thing is the ultimate cost increase. All ultimates increased by 25%, but I'm going to dive into that towards the tail end of this video. I want to first start off by taking a look at each of the hero changes. So let us go ahead and begin with Diva. Diva did have her mech health increased to 200, which was formerly 100, and the armor remains at 400. So this of course gives her now a total of 600 health. On top of that, the movement speed while firing for her has been increased by 25%. Now these changes seem fairly obvious. They buffed Diva in the past, but even with those changes, she hasn't been seeing a ton of competitive play or play at high level. They're trying to make her more tanky. They're making, again, that increased movement speed while firing will also make her more viable of actually dealing damage. She can actually deal some pretty significant damage once she gets right up into somebody's face, but her slow movement speed allowed people to quickly just walk away from the significant amount of damage. Her moving slightly faster is going to allow her to do more damage before the target gets away. And again, that more health is going to make her tankier. I think this change makes perfect sense. Next up, we've got Soldier 76, and this is a rather significant buff that he got. The only change for him was to his pulse rifle, but there's some pretty big changes. The first of which is his bullet damage has been increased from 17 to 20. On top of that, maximum bullet spread has been increased from 2.2 to 2.4. So in terms of the damage, it's a straight buff. He now does 20 damage instead of 17 per bullet. This is going to allow Soldier to potentially take down targets more quickly. However, as far as I can tell, this maximum bullet spread increase from 2.2 to 2.4, I believe that means that the total size of his spread is wider. So if you hold down to full auto fire, your spread's going to be bigger, and that will make your shots less accurate. Now, if that is in fact what this change means, it shouldn't be that big of a deal because it's very rare that you're going to be going full auto. Pretty much everyone who plays Soldier burst fires with him. The only time you full auto is if someone is right up in your face, especially any of those tanks that are fairly large targets that will still be easy to hit. With how Soldier is played, this is just a damage buff. He simply got better, but be worried about that spread. Just be more careful when you go full auto. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, I'm really happy that they're taking a look at Soldier. He definitely needs some more love because he was just essentially straight up replaced by McCree and hasn't been played much at all since then. Anything that they can do to change him is going to be a positive change. Moving on, we have got Ana. There's been a lot of discussion about Ana, how she still remains too strong, and Blizzard has nerfed her, actually rather significantly. Nano Boost no longer increases the move speed of the target, and that third effect was a large part of the reason Nano Boost was so good, especially when coupled with other ultimates like Reaper, like Genji, like Reinhardt just swinging away at his hammer. That increased movement speed made it very difficult for your targets to get away from the person that you nano boosted, and now they'll be moving at their regular movement speed, making it that much less effective. Now, they're clearly trying to knock Ana down a notch. They feel like she's still played too often. I've still been seeing her in most of my games, even after they nerfed her ultimate, so maybe this will do what they're looking for. Moving on, we now have Mei. Now, it was believed before the patch notes came out that Mei was getting a buff, but that is not the case. She just has been straight up nerfed. The ultimate cost has been increased by 15%, meaning it will take 15% longer for her to charge her ultimate. Mei has been getting a lot of play since they buffed her ultimate in the last big patch. They've decided to take her down a notch, and they also decided to take Lucio down a notch. Not a ton of changes for him, but Amp It Up did get a slight nerf. Healing per second has been decreased now by 10%. So as we know, Lucio, since the game launch, he has been a mainstay. He's still in every single composition. He's absolutely necessary on King of the Hill, and even in non-King of the Hill maps, he's still pretty much played in every single game. During Amp It Up, it's going to be 10% less effective. Now, that isn't a big hit, but it's still a reduction. And then finally here for hero changes, we have Azaria. Azaria got a nerf in terms of her ramp up to damage output. Her particle barrier and projected barrier have now had the power gained from them decreased by 20%. So now it's going to take 20% longer, essentially, for her to get to maximum charge. She's still quite as effective in terms of her utility, in terms of the fact that she's a nice self-sustained tank with all of her shields, the fact that she can protect her teammates, but her damage output potential hasn't been reduced, but it's going to take longer for her to ramp up and actually start doing significant damage. I still expect her to be played quite often with this. And then finally, I'm sorry, I almost forgot about the one and only Torbjorn. Some pretty significant changes for him. Scrap is now automatically generated over time. Now, as far as we can tell, it's about 2 to 3 scrap per second. On top of that, though, they have decreased the amount of scrap that you gain from fallen enemies by 40%. It is going to make Torbjorn more useful consistently. Even if a ton of enemies aren't dying around him for him to pick up scrap and give armor, he will still consistently be gaining scrap, and that allows him to be more helpful to his team, constantly tossing out armor, even if not a ton of enemies are dying. That's a great change. He also got a change to his Forge Hammer. The swing speed has been increased by 25%, which means he can level up his turrets and repair his turrets that much quicker. And then also its damage has been increased by 27%. So those are all of the hero changes that we saw in the PTR. Now let's talk about the biggest change. That is the ultimate cost increase by 25%. Every single hero, it will now take 25% more time for them to build their ultimates. Why is this a big deal? It slows down the game tremendously. One of the constant complaints that we've heard about this game in terms of its viewership, we're going to the esports scene now, is how it's so busy all the time and how every engagement is essentially who can ultimate in what order the best. This increase in cost for all ultimates will slow down those engagements. It will result in less ultimates per match, and it's not going to change the fact that the game is going to be about ultimates, but it will slow that pace down, and as a result put more emphasis on the actual skirmishing, the actual gunplay and engagements. Now, on the flip side of that, what this could end up meaning is that the poke phase, where both teams just try to deal a little bit of damage to each other and wait till they build their ultimate before they engage, that might just mean that it takes 25% longer. There's a good chance that that will be the result of this. Ultimately, it's a change in philosophy. You know, there was a long time where Blizzard was talking about how ultimates, they were a crucial part of the game. And of course, again, it still is. But this idea that they're saying, all right, look, ultimates are huge, they're great, they're fun, and we enjoy the crazy moments and plays that they can create, but we still want the players to spend time focusing on the actual firefights, the actual skirmishes, and the battles with just your weapons and your basic abilities. And honestly, I'm happy with this change. As much as I love the ultimates in this game, if the game didn't have ultimates, or if it was the case that you could only use one ultimate per match, I would kind of like that. It puts more weight behind it. It makes it so that when you do use your ultimate, it's more significant, knowing that it's going to take that much longer for the ultimate to come back. All right, everybody, that is going to do it for me here today. As always, love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments section below. Hope you have a fantastic afternoon, and until next time, I'll see you later.